new question here about considering less than 30-day rental, but not less than 10. He said he has concerns about sharing his home. Do I have to have locks on all doors? How do I protect my personal belongings? So this is definitely something that's we're going to talk about. We actually did an interview with a friend of ours that's been renting her property on Airbnb for 4 years, and she's been doing it when she goes out of town. But they basically leave everything in their house. They allow them to potentially eat their food if they've left something in the refrigerator. People do touch their stuff. They said that they definitely put away, like, the expensive whiskey, anything that's obviously a family heirloom, or anything that you'd be really disappointed if something happened to it. They have a couple locked closets that they put them in to make sure that they protect their stuff. But it's not a situation where they necessarily put everything away. If you are sharing your home, so you're going to be in one bedroom and someone else may be staying in another bedroom, I would highly recommend having a lock on your door and a lock on their door for your privacy and for their privacy. Obviously, the common areas are going to be areas you're going to share, but I think it's imperative to have a lock on your bedroom and a lock on the room that you're going to rent. Just as a heads up, locks at Home Depot are about $20 for a locking bed and bath set. Pretty easy to install yourself, and I think it would be worth your while to do that. All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for filling out the polls here. We'll probably have a few more trickle in over the next few minutes. We do want to keep this to about an hour, so I don't want to wait too much longer and end up keeping you longer than we want to. So just as I'm looking at this poll, pretty interesting. So we have 2 people that say they have 1 listing. And then we have 4 people saying they have a space and they plan to list soon. 3 people still trying to decide if Airbnb is what I want. For our second question here, we have 1 that said investment property, 30 days or less. 3 that said investment property, 30 days or more. 4 that are interested in renting a separate unit in their house. 1 that's interested in renting a separate unit in their house for more than 30 days, 2 interested in renting a room in their house for 30 days or less, and 2 rent my whole home while on vacation. So pretty much across the gamut here. So we're going to go through all these examples and show you what we're doing, what some of our friends are doing, and how that's going for everybody. So we're going to end that poll and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and share the results. Everybody can see. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that and we'll get going here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start showing you my screen, give you a little bit of background on who we are and what we're doing and why you maybe should listen to us. So let's get started. All right. All right, everybody. My name is Jake Cohen. My partner up in the corner here is Eric Mayhews. We started a company called Master Vacation Rentals. This webinar that we're working on today is how to choose and analyze your Airbnb and strategies for rental. So we're going to go ahead and start. I'm going to give you a little background on me. You can see my awesome ski patrol picture. I'm actually a firefighter full-time, did do ski patrol for a number of years, and still work as a firefighter on my days that I'm not managing Airbnbs. But as you can see, I have 11 listings that I currently either own or manage. I have 278 reviews with an average of 5 stars. I am a super host, and I've been doing this for about 2 years. I also ran a successful hotel property, was named top 5 hotel in the US by TripAdvisor. So I have quite a bit of background in the hospitality industry, and we're trying to translate that into helping you get up and running easier on your Airbnb. My partner is Eric Mayhews, and this is our website, mastervacationrentals.com. Eric has a background in commercial real estate. He worked for a national vacation rental property management company, and he's currently working on getting a property in the area to start Airbnb. So why did we start Master Vacation Rentals? When we started in Airbnb, we found that it was really difficult to find the right products and the right services to get us up and running. So on top of the training that we do, this page that we're on has a copy of a number of the webinars that we've done in the past. If you're interested in checking any of those out, feel free to hop on our website. There's also a little download link that gives you the links and the information that we discuss in that webinar. Hopefully everyone on today got that from us for today. All this is just kind of a rundown of what we're going to go through. We hope that helps you as you're watching. Click along with us. If there's something you're particularly interested in, hopefully you can mark that to go back to it later. So basically we started this company trying to show everybody that there is an easier way to start your Airbnb by having a select group of products. This is a new system that we're trying out now, but basically these are bundles of products. So if you're looking to furnish a new kitchen, hopefully you can come onto our website, add a couple of these bundles to your cart. Here's our small kitchen appliance bundle, and you can be off and running and ready to start running your Airbnb ASAP instead of doing product research for days and weeks trying to figure out what is going to work well for you. We also have a recommended services tab. That's basically all I'm going to show you from our website. Just wanted to give you kind of a brief overview of what we're doing, what our goal is. If you have any questions, we always try and do a free 30-minute consultation with anybody. We're going to continue to do these webinars once a month, and we'd love to interface with you. We do have a couple forums on Facebook. The first one is Independent Vacation Rental Owners. You'll see the link to that on the sheet that we sent out. It's /groups/VR owner. This is something that you can join, interface with other owners, and it's something that we try and answer if no one else has any input. We also have our Master Vacation Rentals page. That's where we kind of do all of our main marketing and put out lots of information about what's going on in Airbnb and short-term rentals. So check that out. At the end, if you have a good experience, we'd really love it if you would go on here, hit our reviews page, and give us a 5-star review. Just going to help us build a little credibility. While we've been doing this a long time, we have not been presenting for a long time. So we're trying to build up our credibility in the market now. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let Eric take it away, show you our first topic of the night, choosing an area.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jake. Appreciate getting us all rolling here. Let's make sure we've got the correct screen sharing. All right. So in choosing an area to purchase a short-term rental, it's really important to consider, are you looking near where you live, or are you going to buy in an area that you're familiar with? Because it's important to understand the demographics of travelers and who's going to be coming to the area. So, for example, our property's up in Steamboat Springs. It's something where we know that the high and low season are going to be high seasons are summer and winter, with the spring and fall being a little bit off. Maybe you're in a beach area with only summer travelers. So that'll help you understand what the flow of business is going to be like for you. And I think it's also important to note that most areas have some demand for short-term rental. So for example, Loveland, Colorado, which is situated between Fort Collins and Denver, if you zoom in here on Loveland, there are over 150 different listings as you get, kind of within the greater city limits. So even if you're not in a mountain resort area, there's probably some demand for people who are traveling to visit family or in the area for work, and still have the opportunity to be successful.
I just wanted to address one thing real quick. We had a question come in while I was presenting. Can I list the room without furniture? I need to furnish it. And I'm thinking of renting furniture at first. So you definitely do need to list a room with furniture. That's kind of the concept of Airbnb. You don't have to have a ton of furniture. You don't have to have a certain level of furniture. There's nothing on Airbnb that says you have to have 1,000 thread count sheets or anything like that. But my recommendation would be, since this is a review-based business, that you do some nice stuff. And if you are interested in furnishing your property, we just refurnished one of the units for one of our clients. It was about $1,500 for a new mattress, new bed, new couch, new mattress for the couch, kitchen table, and a few other smaller items like nightstands, lamps, that sort of thing. So I think for under $1,000, you could probably furnish a bedroom pretty easily and furnish it nicely. So just something to think about.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. So hopping into short-term rental regulations. This is a hot button topic in the news. And basically, a short-term rental is usually defined as something less than 30 days. And it's important to check with your city and county on what the rules are for where your property is. For example, Denver here, there's websites through the city where you can find out rules on what the requirements are for getting a permit, the fact that it does need to be a primary residence. So someone coming from out of state couldn't buy in Denver and rent short term without living there. So that's a really important consideration as you're looking at different markets, because each area has their own rules. So you can usually hop on Google and find some good info. Otherwise, give the city and county a call and make sure you get directed to something in writing, as there can be some misinterpretation with different employees at different levels within the city and county government. Another thing to consider is HOA or neighborhood covenants. So for example, I personally live in a condo association in Lakewood, Colorado. And while it's not very obvious, I'm looking at my declarations document here, page 27 out of 53, diving into section 710C. It's buried deep in here, but it says no lease shall be for a term of less than 30 days. So some people might look at that and say, I don't really care, I'm just going to do it anyway. But that could open you up to potential fines from your association and leaving travelers stranded if you have to shut down your listing. So really looking at this from a long-term perspective and making sure you're doing things by the book will really benefit you in the long run. Another thing to think about is finding a real estate agent that is familiar with short-term rentals, or at least investment real estate. It's quite a bit of a different approach to run the numbers, understand the market, have an idea of what demand looks like, versus just saying, there's a beautiful backyard and the kitchen's been recently redone. So they can be a really great asset for you in market knowledge and possibly having some management contacts if that's a route you're looking to go. So a big thing, in looking at potential properties is, what size property do you want to get? Are you looking at 1-bedroom condos or 5-bedroom homes? Obviously, your budget is going to be a big part of that, but as well, there's a couple things to keep in mind in terms of how often properties book and at what price. So just a couple of key terms to keep in mind. Your occupancy is the number of nights booked divided by the number of nights available to rent as a percentage. And then what is generally called your ADR, or average daily rate. That's going to be the average price that your property books at for all the nights that it's been booked. So looking at this middle section here, this is pulled from our pricing software that we use, Price Labs. You can see here, you've got your price in dollars and your occupancy as a percentage. So the lower price properties are going to book with a higher frequency, and your lower frequency on the higher price properties. So something to keep in mind, again, understanding the demographic of travelers. Do you have a lot of people coming for large family reunions and events? Or is it more people just getting out of town for the weekend and solo couples or a small group that are traveling? Also keeping in mind the law of diminishing returns, where the jump from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom in your price per night is quite a bit more than jumping from a 4-bedroom to a 5-bedroom price per night. You might, in some markets, you might not even really have much of a difference there. So just some considerations as you're looking at size of property and what the numbers might look like for you. So financing an Airbnb property, there are some new companies that are coming out that are financing based on Airbnb rental numbers. There's quite a bit in flux in this market, and it's important to do your own research and figure out what's going to make sense for your situation. Most likely, it'll be in a traditional investment loan. And when you're talking to potential lenders, you know, saying that you're going to have a rental property, don't necessarily need to specify whether it's short-term or long-term, because most likely they're going to look at long-term rental numbers when looking at what you might be able to qualify for. I saw somebody just had a hand raised there. Is there a question on the financing side? Jake, are we getting anything on the comments there?
No, we haven't gotten anything. If you have a question, go ahead and just enter it into our chat. Once we are finished with the presentation, we'll also open it up for question and answer. So feel free to throw it on the chat and we'll answer it as we go. Otherwise, we'll just, here we go. What % down is normal for a rental property? So thanks for that, Shelly. Actually, 25% down is the normal for what you're going to pay for an investment property. If it's only one unit, sometimes you can get away with only doing 20% down. But in general, commercial real estate loan, which is most likely what you're going to be ending up in for an Airbnb property, is going to be that 25%. There is potential if you, for example, live as your primary residence in that property and then rent the basement, to do it for as little as 3.5% down, or even a 0 down loan if you're a veteran or have some other special program that you can get in on. But if we're talking investment property, you're going to be looking at 20 to 25%. Another question came in: should I use an LLC? And using an LLC is always a good idea from an asset protection situation. If someone were to come to your property, slip on your walk coming in, something like that, and sue you, they would be able to potentially sue you for everything that you own if your property is not in an LLC. So they could go after your primary residence, your car, your whatever. If you have an LLC, again, it's not foolproof. We're not lawyers, but we find that the asset protection is much better, because basically what you're saying is, I have a business and I operate it independently of my regular life. So someone can sue your business, but in most cases, they're not able to access your primary residence, your car, etc. It's kind of an unfortunate thing to talk about in real estate, but it is a situation that is real, and we want to make sure that everyone takes the best care that they can. But I highly recommend you discuss with a lawyer and use an LLC if at all possible.
Jake, we just had a question come in on what type of groups you tend to get in a 3-bedroom property. I thought it might be a good one.
Sure. Yeah, so I have a couple 3-bedroom properties, and Most of the time it's families or couples or a family with a child and another couple, that sort of thing. It really depends what you market your property as. So if you market your property as a 3-bedroom, but it can sleep 15, you're going to get someone who's looking to have a party because they can hold 15 people in there. If you market your property as a 3-bed, 2-bath, and it sleeps 6 or 8, you're probably going to end up with families, and you're going to end up with, couples that are away for a weekend and that sort of thing. It really just depends on what you're looking for. And I highly recommend that you write your listing for the person that you're looking to get, not to maximize the number of beds or something like that. It is a way to bring in more revenue, but in the long run, saying that you can sleep 15 because you have 10 air beds, it may not be the best bet for your property.
Cool. Thanks for handling that, Jake. One last item quick here on choosing an area, and then we'll get into some different strategies. A big thing is having a backup plan. So regulations are changing in a lot of different areas, and it's possible that you buy a property, you're able to rent it for a few years, and the rules change. So we like to use sites like rentometer.com, where you can plug in a property address, the number of beds, and it will pull up some comps on long-term rental numbers for nearby properties. So this is looking at a property in Steamboat Springs that we'll do a quick run through on the analysis later on, and plug all the info in, and we're finding out, okay, great, this property can do about $2,600-$2,700 a month long term if we need to use that as a backup down the road. So just wanted to make sure that you're aware and have a plan B in mind if and when things change down the road. Jake, I think you're up on the different strategies for using the platform.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go ahead and show you my screen again and show you something. So this is a new little one sheet that we came out with. So this is basically how to maximize your returns, short-term allowed versus short-term not allowed. So if we look at this, the first category is investment property. So investment property is something that you're going to purchase, you're not going to live in. So on the left-hand side is our short-term friendly areas. On the right-hand side is our short-term is not allowed. So we're going to do a quick comparison for you on a 3-bed, 2-bath property in both of these scenarios. So the money signs at the bottom are kind of arbitrary, but from what we've found, you can make the most money from purchasing an investment property and renting it for 30 days or less to travelers. This is basically Airbnb's bread and butter. 30 days or less rentals, and you have the whole unit to yourself. So I'm going to show you a property that I have in Steamboat Springs. This property here, that's the outside of the property. Like I said, a 3-bed, 2-bath property, pretty centrally located right on a bus route, and it does really well for us. We renovated this property last year. There's the nice kitchen, dining area with a fireplace, and there's the deck with a view. So really nice property, big couch for everyone to hang out at. And I'm going to show you some numbers from the high season. This is March of 2019. So you can see down here, we see payout excluding cleaning fee. That's the numbers that we use because that's the money that's actually going to come into our pocket. If we include the cleaning fee, that's basically just a pass-through directly to our cleaner. So you'll see in our calculation later, we leave that out as well, just for simplicity. But you can see at this property, we did about $7,663.91 approximately in March. That's the high season. I show you March because I'm going to compare it to a property that we just listed. this is going to be the more than 30-day rental property. This was actually my primary residence, and we just moved to a new house because we have a little one and she needed a little more space. But size is fairly similar to the other property. Again, a 3-bed, 2-bath. This just rented for 4 months for about $4,000 a month. And the long-term rental on this is about $2,500 a month. So it's a significant increase over what we would have done had we just rented it unfurnished as a long-term rental. It's important to remember that we are going to have to pay for utilities, TV service, and cleanings, and we may not be full all of the time. But my guess is that this is going to turn out to be a pretty awesome strategy for us. So we just rented this for the first time, so we're still kind of experimenting, and we're going to see how this goes. But if we end up averaging around $4,000 a month, that's going to be a really nice, lucrative strategy for us. When talking to real estate agents in the area, they said that they see furnished rentals renting for about 140% of long-term rental rates. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb if you're looking at this and you're trying to decide, is this a good strategy for me? Think of that as that 140% as kind of a baseline. So we're going to go back to our one sheet here and show you the next strategy here. So as we scroll up here, extra unit in your home. So do you rent a separate space in your home for less than 30 days on the short-term rental side, or do you rent it for 30 days plus? The market that we've been finding that's very popular for this is travel nurses. There's also a lot of people coming into town for corporate stays, or people might be in between houses, that sort of thing. So definitely something worth looking at. But we're going to show you an example now of that extra unit in your home. This is a friend of ours. This is on VRBO, but he has a property. It's an ADU, so it's actually on top of his garage. I'll show you the photos here. But you can see it's right on top of the garage, and has a separate outdoor entrance. Very nice property in Low-High area. You can see that it was all done all modern and nice. Separate bedroom, and there's the kitchen. Pretty cool property, but he's been pretty happy with how this has been going, renting on VRBO and Airbnb. And then obviously you could rent something like this to a travel nurse for 3 to 6 months at a time and have a little less turnover, but still get more than your long-term rent. The other category that we talk about is renting a room in your house. So that's going to be a little bit of a different scenario. And we had that question earlier. You know, what do I do to protect my stuff and all of that? In general, after renting on Airbnb for a number of years, I can tell you that people in general are not malicious. The few times that I've had issues with people, it was on accident. You know, their dog accidentally chewed up something in the house, and they're willing to take care of it immediately. So I wouldn't worry too much, but I definitely would protect yourself. Make sure that if there's anything that's super valuable, you're not leaving it out in your common room. And when I say really valuable, I'm not talking about a $500 TV. You know, most of us have a nice flat screen TV. If someone's going to steal your TV, you know, they're looking for anything. You know, that takes a lot of effort to pull a, you know, 55, 65-inch TV out to their car, you know, disconnect cables, all that. And Airbnb does have a really good policy to help you out if something like that does happen. After talking to all the people we've talked to, almost no one has had a situation that was really bad like that and said, you know what, I'm not going to rent on Airbnb anymore. I actually saw an article earlier today about a gentleman that a party was thrown in his place, and he said when he gets it fixed up, he's going to rent it on Airbnb again because Airbnb took care of him and made it right. So The last portion of this that I want to talk about is renting your property while you go on vacation. So this is something that I'm interested in trying, and we did an interview with a friend of ours called named Alyssa, and she made some really interesting points. And I'm going to show you her unit, and then I'm going to go ahead and play some of the audio that she went ahead and gave us. So I'm going to play this in the background as I show you her unit.
Jake, that audio is not quite coming through.
Oh, audio's not coming through. Hold on one sec. Can you hear now? No?
Not really.
Okay. Well, we will troubleshoot the audio for next time. I apologize about that. Show you Alyssa's unit here. Alyssa's unit is in Denver. So what she does is when she goes on vacation, she rents out her whole space. And as I said earlier, they put away a couple select items. It's a really cool place though. And as you can see, it's a duplex. So they have a neighbor on one side. But as you can see from the photos, it's maybe not quite as professional and polished. But it's also representative of what people are going to see. They're not going to see everything cleaned up perfectly. They're going to see some books. They're going to see some things on the wall. They're going to see their glass collection over in the corner there. And it's important that whatever you're renting, that you show exactly what people are going to get. And we talked to her, and she said, for example, she moves over everything in the fridge so that her guests have plenty of space. She uses the drawers, and um, then she basically leaves all the shelves for her guests to use while they're there. And most of the time, she's gone for either just a weekend, or she goes away for a longer vacation, 10 days or something like that. She might rent to a couple different people. What she said about revenues was that this basically replaces them having a roommate. So this started as they had a roommate living with them, and they decided, we're getting older now. We don't want to have a roommate anymore. So let's go ahead and try this on Airbnb. And they're not using their house. Someone comes and cleans their house and makes it perfect for the guests, and then they basically change the sheets when they get back, and they go back to their daily routine. So it's a pretty cool concept. And one of the things that really hit home was that she said her home now feels like an asset as opposed to a liability. And the reason she said that was because instead of her home costing her a lot of money, it's now something that can produce some income for her. And I think that's really powerful and really cool. So I think it's important for us to all remember that. One other thing I want to hit on here is, if by chance you get through all of this and you say, none of those really sound like a great situation to me, you may be someone that's just better off renting long term. Maybe you don't want to deal with guest turnovers. Maybe you don't want to deal with reservations. That's okay. Or maybe you do the research and you look at the numbers and you look at Rentometer and you find out that renting your space long term is actually a better financial choice. So I encourage you to look at all the numbers, all the ways, before you decide for sure which way to go. I'm going to go ahead and hand this back over to Eric, and we're going to walk through an actual analysis of a property with you.
Awesome, Jake. Before I take over here, quick question from Shelly. Is it possible to use an LLC to rent 2 rooms in my basement in my own non-LLC home?
That is complicated. I believe you could use the LLC as a property management company, if that makes sense. So essentially, you could rent your basement to the property management company. So you personally would rent it to you LLC property management company, and then operate under that. the complication is going to be that if you ever went to court or something like that, most likely a judge is going to look at this and say, well, you're the main member of the LLC. You also own the house. This looks like you just did this to try and get yourself out of trouble. And my best advice would be to talk to a real estate attorney if you're looking to do something like that, because I am definitely not that well versed in how that would go or the best way to do that. But I think there's potential to do that. I just don't know if you would get as much protection as you would if the whole property was in an LLC.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. All right. So whether you're looking at doing Airbnb with part of your primary residence or property that you're looking to buy, you got to figure out how to put the numbers together and figure out whether this is going to make sense for you or not. So one thing that we really like to use is AirDNA. It's a great tool that analyzes current Airbnb data and gives you some insights. So right now we're looking at sort of an overview of an area. So for example, I'm in the Capitol Hill neighborhood here in Denver. You can, and they have different packages you can get. Like for example, Cap Hill is $40 a month to get all the insights. You can break it down by entire room, offering a private room, seasonality, all that stuff. Whereas right now you can just see kind of some generic data on occupancy, average daily rate, and potential revenue. So it can get as low as $20 depending on your zip code and your area, or you can spend a lot more and get a lot more data. So something that you can buy a month of, cancel it if you decide you've gotten all you need. What's also really nice tool to use is what's called their rentalizer. So on the menu here, you can click down on the rentalizer and plug in a specific property address. So this is a listing that we saw in Steamboat Springs, caught our eye because it's a duplex and it's just down the road from some of our other properties in Steamboat. So we have some good data to compare it with. So one thing to keep in mind with these numbers is they're aggregating data from all listings on Airbnb. So whether it's one of ours, which is available for rent every day of the year, or someone who just puts their place up for the Christmas holiday week. So you're going to have some outliers in there that are going to pull the data a bit. So for example, this occupancy rate of 38%, when we look at our data for our property just down the road, for the first 8 months of this year, we're actually seeing closer to 63%. If you take a look at this average daily rate and hover here, it actually includes the cleaning fee, which, as Jake mentioned earlier, is really a pass-through that you're not pocketing that money. So this average daily rate is a bit higher than what we're seeing at our property down the road, closer to 282 on your average daily rate. So it's a really great tool to give you a general idea, but keep in mind there are some limitations and things to consider when saying that's exactly how much I'm going to make with this size property at this address. And let's see here. Jake was going to do a quick little deep dive here on a listing in Steamboat. There's listings in Steamboat Springs on Airbnb to kind of show you a way to dive in and say, okay, what's my actual competition in my direct area for similar sized properties? That's a great way to see who you're going to be competing with and what travelers are going to be looking at next to your property when they're searching.
Yeah, definitely, Eric. So it's important to know that you do have other options to look at aside from just this AirDNA data. Sorry, I'm stuck in this screen. See if I can get out of here. View. There we go. Sorry guys, technical difficulties. All right, get back in here. and share my screen. I promise I'm getting better at this webinar stuff. Taking me a few, but we're getting better slowly but surely. So the best way to look at this is if we go to Airbnb.com and we search for Steamboat Springs, Colorado stays, and we know exactly what we want to look for. So we know on this map exactly where that Cortina property is, and it's just to the south of the Steamboat Springs ski resort. So I'm going to kind of zoom in on that area here. And it's really important for us to realize that all these numbers on here are potentially current rental figures. However, they may not be current rental figures. So I'm going to go ahead and click into one. And you saw that it said 138 per night. So this is actually a figure that you're going to enter in, which is kind of your average lowest nightly rate. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a few days on here and see what we actually end up with. So looks like we are at 138 a night. But one thing to remember is that Steamboat's a very seasonal area. So instead of just looking at a couple days and saying, well, looks like I can get $138 a night for that 3-bed, 2-bath property that we were looking at evaluating, let's look at some figures in February and see what that situation is. So February on the weekend, for example, he's getting $468 a night in February. So just be aware that just because you see a number on the map and you say, oh, it's $138 a night, doesn't mean that's what you're going to get all the time. So it's really important to dive into the data over a few different time frames. So realize when the high season is, realize when the low season is, understand that it's going to be somewhere in between those. It's going to be your average daily rate. So if I was looking at this, I would probably say it's somewhere in the middle, and where we were at our property at that 280 a night approximately is probably somewhere where this is going to land. So we're going to go ahead and dive a little deeper into a spreadsheet that we created to kind of go through this and show you step by step what we look at when we're looking at buying a property.
All right. Thanks, Jake. So taking a look at that listing, we're still looking at that Cortina property here. So taking a look at some of the initial photos, kind of getting a sense for what the era is on the interior, when it was last done. So this listing doesn't give us the most information. Definitely would like a little more insight, but taking a look, it's like, okay, it's going to need to be updated. Maybe not looking at any structural changes, but on an initial quick look, we're going to need to put a little bit of love into this property. So what we do when taking a look at something like this is we are going to open up our spreadsheet that we created here.
And that spreadsheet, there is a link for it on the sheet there. If you want to download this for your own use, feel free to just click on that download and use it here link in the list. And then we can go ahead and just get that to you so that you can use it. Be aware that this calculator is something we came up with that we felt like it helped us. This is not the end all be all. There's lots of other things to consider, and please don't use this as 100% this is going to work or 100% it's not going to work. This is just a tool to use.
Awesome, thanks, Jake. Quick technical things, making sure we're on the right screen here. Okay. So the way we have this set up here is basically anything in yellow is information that you're inputting. So as we mentioned earlier, the 25% down is going to be standard. The mortgage rate is going to be most likely higher than, or is going to be higher than doing a primary residential loan. unless you're obviously going to be living in the property, then you can take advantage of some of those lower rates. The big ones being that ADR, which we just covered, plugging that in here, and then the occupancy rate down below. So this is going to be something that take a quick look at, and then pull over to the results tab here and be able to take a look at some more detailed information and see what kind of returns this property is looking like. The link that is in the PDF we sent out to you is going to have a slightly more updated version of the calculator. Just taking a look, realizing this is a little bit older version that I have up on the screen right now. But that'll basically give you an idea of, okay, yes, this is something that makes sense to move forward with, or these numbers are too tight. I'd have to hit everything perfect for this to work, because especially if you're looking at doing major renovations, like on this one, we estimated 100,000 renovations on a very quick look. That's going to take longer and cost more than you think. And having worked with Jake on renovating one of the properties last summer, I can definitely say things will come up as soon as you dig into a wall. It's going to cost more money than you thought. So just be aware of those potential things that are going to come up. If you haven't done this before, talk to a lot of contractors, get multiple opinions on any work you're looking to have done, and then assume that it's going to take a bit longer. Jake, I guess, did you have anything to add on looking at the numbers or construction thoughts?
Definitely, construction is one of those things that if you ask for a bid, you'll probably end up with 4 different numbers. So it's one of those things that a lot of times you need to go to multiple people. Sometimes you need to just go back to that first person and say, hey, someone else came in lower. They might lower their price $30,000. There's a lot that goes into it. If you're looking to renovate a property, start a little bit small before you jump into a huge renovation. If you're looking to get into Airbnb for the first time, sometimes going with something a little more simple, like a condo or something like that, where you don't have to deal with huge exterior problems and drilling piers into the ground and things like I did with my first Airbnb. So I think it's important to look at this, and this was a property that we found on the MLS. $699,000 is what it's listed for. It has 2 units, each 3-bed, 2-bath. So we're using the comp of my property that's a 3-bed, 2-bath. It's a triplex, so similar in the sense that it's multifamily, but you do have a yard. It's about a half a mile away from here. So one thing I want to point out is that on this page, this front page, everything is in yellow. Eric, when you click through to the results tab,
yep,
you go ahead and see that all those items in yellow are still here. So we can go ahead and adjust the numbers. So for example, if we change the numbers,
sorry, I'm just trying to make sure. I'm trying to open up the most recent one here.
Oh, okay, gotcha. It's okay. We're fine in the one that we're in.
There we go. We're good. We're back up.
Okay. All right. So Eric's been doing work behind the scenes, making sure everything works properly. But this is a cool calculator to use, because if you only want to change things on the front end here, you can, and you can see the data down below. So you can see that this one, based on the current numbers that are in there. All right, go ahead and enter something so we can actually show some numbers.
There we go.
So you can see that the data here, our potential revenue per month is $4,811. Revenue per year, $57,000. Cap rate and cash on cash return. And then on that,
I'm sorry, Jake, what was that?
investing, you'll find these calculators. Go back to sharing.
Yep, it just crashed on me, so we're getting back up and running here.
While we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and look at questions that have come through. Just to let everybody know in the chat, we went ahead and posted the link to the YouTube video with Alyssa. So if you're interested in renting out your property while you go on vacation, definitely go ahead and click on that link and check it out. Looks like we have someone else that's looking for the PDF. We will definitely get that to you. I see your email there, and we will definitely get that to you. We also have, please explain cap rate. Sorry, I got someone that says, I don't see the link in the chat. The link for Alyssa, we will send out in our follow-up email as well. It's possible that we posted it just to panelists and not to attendees. Eric just reposted it. So hopefully, slowly but surely, we're getting you all the info that you're needing here. So we have Lindy asking us about cap rate. Eric, do you want to explain what cap rate is?
So cap rate is more common in commercial real estate than residential. And what it is it's a way to evaluate your return on investment. And what it does is it takes out the fact that you're borrowing money to buy this property. A cap rate is basically the return if you were to purchase a property all cash. So I don't want to get too nerdy here, but basically you have your purchase price divided by the money you earn over a year, called NOI, and that gives you a way to compare apples to apples and investing in a vacation rental versus investing in a retail strip center versus buying an industrial building. So people have different metrics they like to use in investing to say this return makes sense for me and I want to put my money towards this. So depending on where you're at with your investing life cycle and what metrics are important to you, it's just another way to help understand how profitable this could be. Let me know if that doesn't make sense and I can break it down a little more, but basically it's a way to determine return on investment if you were to buy a property all cash.
And I think something else to think about is what is important to you. So the reason we have both cap rate and cash on cash return in here in our calculations is because they're both important for us to consider. But at the end of the day, for me, cash on cash return is really what I'm looking for, because I want to know if I put in $300,000, how much as a percentage am I going to make back in year one and in year two and in year three? I know that I'm going to borrow money, so the cap rate doesn't matter as much to me as the cash on cash return does. Now, that may be different if I was an institutional investor and I was going after only properties with cash. So just something to keep an eye on. Looks like we got one more question here. What's your minimum threshold for cash on cash return? Normally, I would say 10% personally is my minimum threshold for cash on cash return. These days, for traditional real estate deals, that's near impossible to find. Airbnb is one of the few places that you can still find those kinds of cash on cash returns. So it really depends what you're looking for. The thing you need to realize about Airbnb is, yes, I have a cash on cash return, looks like from this property of 16, almost 17%, but I have to do a lot more work to run a Airbnb than I do a long-term rental. So it's also a proposition that you need to think about. Do I want to be answering questions on my phone from guests? Do I want to be dealing with something when something's not right? Or do I just want to get someone in there and not have to worry about it for close to a year? And obviously, you can still have potential of having a toilet or something that's broken overnight in a long-term rental as well. But in a short-term rental, there's a lot more day-to-day interaction that you're going to be in charge of, making sure your cleaners are on top of the things they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. We'll go from there. But anything else you wanted to go over, Eric, as far as this analysis?
So we just had a couple of questions come through that we'll get to here in just a sec. I think, I think this is a good starting point, and just to understand that this isn't a go, no go decision making tool. It's really just a resource for you to get an idea of the potential returns for an investment. So just want to make sure that if the calculator says 10% doesn't mean you should necessarily pull the trigger. So it's part of the evaluation process. And got a couple of questions here. One, asking how we can get the spreadsheet. We'll send that out in a follow-up email after the webinar. We'll send the YouTube link, the link to the spreadsheet, and make sure that you have access to all of that. And we will, this is being recorded. I saw another question, so we will get that sent out as well. And then I guess, Jake, this might be a question for you. Question on what type of accountant to look for someone with multiple properties to do their taxes. Is there a specific type of person you'd recommend speaking to, or just finding a good CPA?
I highly recommend using someone who's really familiar with rental real estate. Finding someone who's also familiar with the shared economy is a great thing to also find. Personally, I kind of use two of those to take care of my taxes and my properties. So I just started using a bookkeeper, and they also do taxes. I wasn't quite comfortable giving them my whole tax file yet, but they started doing my bookkeeping, and they're doing a really good job. It's called Shared Economy CPA. They specialize in Airbnb, Uber drivers, that sort of thing. So they're pretty familiar with our type of business and how to kind of account for everything properly. I use a local CPA who specializes in both real estate law and tax. It's called Long Law Group, and they've been really good to me over the years, helping me create my LLCs, as well as taking care of my accounting, and even bailing me out when another accountant tried to charge me too much for a service. They happened to step in and say, hey, just a heads up, we would do this for half the price. So it's always nice to have someone on your side that's looking out for you. And I feel like they're very reasonable for what they offer. So definitely check them out, a Long Law Group and Shared Economy CPA, two different companies that I would check out for your accounting and law/tax needs.
Awesome. Well, it kind of feels like we're getting into the Q&A side of things. We got someone asking about the consulting that we do. And it's something where we are working with a couple of property owners up in Steamboat right now, doing co-hosting in terms of consulting on your specific Airbnb situation. Like Jake mentioned, we do offer a 30-minute phone call where we can talk about your specific questions and needs. And then beyond that, we are open to discussing, in further detail what you might be looking for and how we might be able to help.
Yeah, and to go into a little more detail with that, co-hosting is basically a situation where we take care of all the reservations, we interface with the cleaners, we answer any questions that come in from guests, we respond to reviews, we're the main point of contact. So that is something that is becoming more and more popular. It's not quite a full-blown property manager, but from what we're seeing, having someone who's dedicated, who you can reach out to, and who you know is going to answer the phone sometimes is better than working with a big company that you don't know who is going to answer the phone. We've had really good relationships with our couple of clients as co-hosts with them, and if you would like information, we'll be happy to put you in touch with them. As far as the other consulting, basically, we're happy to help with anything you're looking for. If you need help furnishing a property, if you need help deciding how to get up and running with a software, anything like that, we're here for you. And like Eric said, we do have a situation where we'll do a free 30-minute consultation with you. We'll get on the phone, get an idea of exactly what you're looking for, try and answer a few questions in that time. And then from there, we do charge an hourly rate, or we can create a contract if it's something that's not sure exactly how long it's going to take. So if you're interested in that, just reach out to one of us via email or anything like that, and we'll be happy to discuss further with you. Any other questions that we can answer at this point?
Got one that came in, another LLC question. They started renting a primary place under their own name, now want to create an LLC with their current place as soon as they move into the new property. Can you convert a current listing over to an LLC?
So I'm not sure if you're talking about converting your property into an LLC. That would be my recommendation, would be to hold title of your property in an LLC and then manage the property through that LLC. I don't think you necessarily have to change the name on the Airbnb account to, Jake's Property Management LLC. I think you can still use Jake, your Airbnb account. I think you'll see both ways. But anyways, it's something definitely to think about. But I would probably recommend just keeping it as Jake on Airbnb and leave your listing as is, unless you're planning on starting a short-term rental empire. Then maybe you do want to start a brand of short-term rental management.com LLC, and you could create that profile on Airbnb now. But if it was me, I'd probably stick with my personal name. I think it's more personable when people are looking at your property, and just put your property into an LLC as far as holding title, and then have your books through that LLC. It shouldn't matter that your name is on the Airbnb account.
So we got a question. Heather was asking about accountants in Denver. So that was Long Law Group, Jake, that was recommended.
Law Group is the accountant that I use in the area, and she's done a great job for me so far. They're also great with LLCs. I work with Peter on my LLCs and Stephanie Long on my accounting. Looks like there's one more. Who or what software or service do you recommend to manage multiple calendars, such as VRBO plus Airbnb, etc.? This is something that we've been struggling with a little bit, and working on a better solution for. Currently, the software we use is called Smart B&B, and Smart B&B does a really great job on Airbnb, and its messaging is heads and shoulders above anybody else. However, I have found their interface with VRBO to be a little imperfect. So I'm kind of trying to evaluate what software may be better. Another one that I've been evaluating is called Your Porter. They just established a connection with VRBO, and I think it's definitely worth taking a look at. If I were you, I'd probably evaluate both of them and decide what's best. there's a lot of other softwares out there that do a good job, but you're going to pay a lot of money for it. So those are two that I found that are fairly affordable for what they offer. Someone said Guesty, and Guesty is definitely one that I have used. The problem that I found with Guesty was that they wanted to take 3% of my revenues, and when I started out and I only had one unit, 3% didn't seem like that much. Now that I'm managing 11 units and my revenues are upwards of $300,000 a year, 3% becomes a really large number, and I'm not comfortable paying that much for my software. So there's a lot of options out there. There's a new one coming out every day, and we'll be evaluating more and more and doing some analysis on them in future webinars.
Jake, another LLC question here. Do you use a single LLC for all your properties, or do you have a separate one for each property? Pros and cons for those options.
The recommendation that I have been given is to have a single LLC for each property, and then an umbrella LLC over the top of those LLCs. So I file taxes through the umbrella LLC, but I have separate accounting for each property. And I'm able to break those out so that, you know, it's multi-purpose. For asset protection purposes, if someone at my property on Alpenglow falls and hurts themselves, they could potentially sue me and take that property from me. But because it's not listed in the same LLC as my other property, most likely they will not be able to access that other property, because they would have to bust through the first LLC, then my umbrella LLC, and then the third LLC, and most likely that's not going to happen. So the cons of doing it that way is you have 3 LLCs for 2 properties, and obviously as you add more properties, you would have, you know, 3 properties, 4 LLCs, etc. For me, that seems like the simplest because I can file taxes under just one LLC. So I'm not paying for multiple tax returns from multiple LLCs. But I am in a situation where I have the asset protection of separate LLCs. Hopefully that answers your question. And if you have more, I'd be happy to put you in touch with Peter at Long Law Group, because he's definitely the one to talk to. I believe he does do something like a 15-minute free consultation as well. So if you have more of those legal questions, he's probably better to talk to than I am.
Awesome. Well, anybody else, any other questions on things we've covered today, or anything short-term rental related that's on your mind?
All right, awesome. Well, I just want to close this out real quick. If you have a moment, we'd really appreciate if you went to our Facebook page, facebook.com/mastervacationrentals, and post a 5-star review for us. That would just help us gain some momentum, and we'd love to have you on board when we start our next webinar. We'll send that out in the follow-up email. Thanks so much, and we hope to talk to you soon.